Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. I do hope you're having a good day. Today on the podcast, I had Veronika on. She's a relationship coach. Everything on the podcast was going so well up until the end, where I'm not too sure if it was the new program I'm using to record podcasts or if it was an internet connection issue. So yes, this podcast will end abruptly, which I apologize for. But yeah, please uh, excuse my. Let me apologize for the technical error what went down with the podcast. But yeah, there is still quality to be had from this episode. So please sit back, enjoy the episode, and yeah, we're gonna get it back on and do a part two, and it's gonna be fantastic. So sit back, enjoy, and have a great day. Peace. Go, baby, go. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on the podcast, I have the delight, the pleasure to have a Veronika Amaya on the podcast. She is a relationship coach, basically focusing on spirituality, and authenticity. How are you today, my lady?
Very well, thanks. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here as well. Now, I have to ask. Now, how does a nice German girl end up in a place like Dorset?
So, the nice German girl, she goes traveling to India after uni. She meets
Mm-hmm.
a very nice English boy in Mumbai in a hostel. They
Okay.
travel together for 5 months and they get
Okay.
all the diseases you can catch in India.
All right. I see.
Yes, they fall in love and then he takes her to England.
I see. I see. So 5 months of traveling, finding your significant other. Did you expect to have something like this, or were you just like I'm like mom, dad, I'm off to travel around the world, have a little bit of fun, maybe get wild, and yes, have a story or two to fondly remember when you were old and grey.
I was really done with men at that point. I was like, I'm just giving up. I'm just gonna be an old cat lady.
Oh,
And
oh,
that's actually
exactly.
that's good, because you just be relaxed. And yeah, and then I remember so well, I was sitting in this table and then there was this really kind of like mystical man there and I was like, oh, I like him, but I'm not doing any relationships now, so I'll just chat with him. Yeah, and then we just hang out and traveling is like the best way to get to know each other because we were together 24 hours for like months and months. So
Mm-hmm.
we moved in together after half a year, but it felt like we were just always together. So yeah, it was really smooth and just yeah, he's my best friend, everything. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yep. Now I have to ask. Now, being a relationship coach and just hearing you say, at that point in my life, I was done with men. Now, like, what sort of things happened along the way to go, I was done with men? And yeah, what
Mm.
happened? It could be exact or it could be like, hey, be vague. But I'm interested, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, sure. So, as probably every therapist, coach, healer, whatever can I tell you, it all starts in childhood. So,
Oh,
my parents just had very difficult relationships. They were always fighting. So,
mhm,
basically, how I learned relationships was that there's a constant power struggle. And also, I was really attracted when I, started dating guys with 15 or whatever, always to very emotionally unavailable men like my dad, because that's the pattern. Because you unconsciously select someone that you think will love you like the parent who traumatized you didn't, right? So my dad is a wonderful man, right? It's just like many guys in his generation, he couldn't really connect with me. So yeah, so I had always these unavailable men, and it just when a partner can't meet one of your most important needs, it feels like inside you're dying or like you're thirsty and never, you get water, right? So that's how it
yeah.
was for me. And because I always loved being in relationships, but I always felt like I could never get what I needed. At some point I was just, okay, that's it, because, too many tears, that's it. But that was actually really good, because basically with my husband now, so we got married last October, we had a kind of a 6 years. He was,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. He was a completely different guy. And in the beginning, I was not really attracted to him because he didn't have this, he wasn't like my dad. But over time, a really beautiful, strong bond developed, because he could actually give me what my dad could not give me, right? So he could actually heal me. That's why I always encourage people, sometimes when you are stuck in this pattern of always meeting this similar type of person, it's not
Mm-hmm.
good to always go with attraction, because attraction really can fool you, and it can actually come from trauma, you know?
Mm. Would you say like people fall into those sort of patterns? It's a case of sometimes that it's not even a case of attraction. It's just a case of that's what they believe they deserve at that present time.
Yes, 100%. Exactly. That's also the other thing. Like, so many people have unexamined belief. Like, it's actually so good to really get to know your thoughts and your beliefs,
Mhm.
because many people think, for example, women are just manipulative, men are just unreliable, men can't connect with you, women are just after your money. And the problem is that our beliefs literally shape our experience. Like, for example, a more cute example is, I had a friend in Amsterdam, and she
Mhm.
was looking for a serious committed relationship for 2 years, and she just couldn't find a guy. She said to me, in Amsterdam, all the men, they just want these loose relationships, just dating, just like having all the options open. And then I said to her, but she's a gorgeous woman, like super beautiful and very smart. So I was like, come on, I don't think that's true. I was like, just change your filter on your search app, just committed. I'm just
Mm.
looking for committed men. And she's like, I'll never find anyone. I was like, just try it. Just try it. And then she did it. And of course, she had like guys lining up. Yeah. So it was one of her beliefs that was just not real. It was just, yeah.
Mm. No, I'm curious because like if she changed that belief and then like yeah, all of a sudden she had this like yeah, like conveyor belt of guys who are like truly committed, like who, like making that choice for that one particular guy where you've gone from like yes, like starvation and like famine to like plentiful and like abundance. Like how did she eventually like did she go into how she made her eventual choice? Because it's a bit of a mind jump again from going from one thing to another, you know?
Yeah, I think for her it was relatively easy, because it's either, that action and result inform belief and the other way around. So for her it was a bit easier, because it was literally just changing the filters and just realizing that if she was just looking for like saying, on Tinder, I'm just looking for committed men that want to have a serious relationship, and she had guys who wanted to have a date with her. So that
Mm.
was like immediately, oh, okay, I see my belief was totally wrong. But of course, as you were saying, some people, for example, have unconscious belief that they are completely unworthy of love, making them so insecure and awkward in relations that people just don't feel comfortable around them. And then they always get the proof, right? Oh, no, no,
Mm.
no, it is because I'm not worthy. It is because I'm not worthy. So we have to really work then on the confidence bit. And then they suddenly realize, oh my gosh, it was never me. I mean, there's people that are, I don't want to be mean, but they are quite ugly, but they have
Oh.
so much success with people, with dates, because they are mega confident. So
Mm.
people are very obsessed about like the how you look and all that stuff, but actually how you come across is, like, I would say, so much more important, because yeah, people just love a confident person who's funny. You know how it is. I mean, yeah, you're quite personable. You know that that's so actually more important, because you can be like so boring and uncharming and be like a model or something. People would also not really want to be around you, right?
Well, I would simply say this. If you're not armed with a little bit of wit, charm, like grace, like yeah, a little bit of refinement. I don't. You could be Brad Pitt, Denzel Washington, or what? Like yeah, like pick a myriad of like handsome fellas out there. It won't really work. For example, Ryan Reynolds, right? That guy. Look, the reason why I pick him is because he seems to have all the sort of ingredients, like just like yeah, like hopefully he has a tremendously small penis, so it just balances out the universe. But yeah, but he's a witty fella, handsome, like yeah, can drop a joke like that, and yeah, can sing like there's no tomorrow. But yes, like yes, if there's any justice in this world, in this galaxy, tiny penis. But but you get what I mean.
Totally. Yes, 100%. Um, but yeah, you really don't need even to be Ryan Reynolds, especially these days, because you know what also happens in modern age is that many people have very, very, very bad social skills. So that's, for example, a big thing that I teach my, especially younger clients, is
Mm.
very simply like when you have a conversation with someone, how to really pay attention to what they're saying. You know, really listen to them. Like I had a client, he was 24, and I realized at some point that he doesn't know how to listen to a woman. And I said to him, I really taught him, you know, how to really give her space, be super interested. And for him, it was an absolute game changer because he basically how he thought of him of dating was, oh, I have to impress her. I have to say the best thing. I have to be cool. You know, I have to show her how smart I am. And I was like, yeah, of course, it's good, you know, to impress her a bit. But women love it really if you give her actually attention and you show that she's interesting to you, you know. And many young people have don't know how to do this anymore because of all the social media. So yeah, if you're a bit witty and you know how to listen to people and you're a bit fun, then you don't really need to be a super good looking person. I think you're going to have really great dating experience actually.
I see. The age of the screen is like killing off people's like yeah social skills.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
Ah. So if you would like to like basically if that's some like if you're finding more young people find it difficult to listen and like communicate, like what is one of the things you would say to them to like okay, this is how you can start make like moving in the right direction, say.
Yeah. So, very simply, when you are with, like, talking with someone,
Mm,
try to really take them in. You know, like, how is the facial expression of them? What is their body posture like? You know, you can read people very well just by that, for example. So it's something that you can just train every time you have an interaction, and then when you are in a conversation with a friend or you know whomever, do not think about what you want to say while they're speaking, but
mm,
really listen. And it's fine if it you know maybe 1 or 2 seconds pass when they have finished talking. That's totally fine, but that you can really concentrate on what they are saying and then only respond. Like that's such a simple thing, and people will react so positively to it because this is one of the biggest needs that is very unmet for many people is that they're not really being seen and heard. You know, so it's such a major skill, and then at some point, if they have kids, so important to do this with kids because I think a lot of the attention problems, attention deficit, or you know the kids are too loud or something comes from that because they just need to be seen. It's like a really important need. So if you learn that, you're going to have such advantages also in your career, but especially in your relationships.
mm. Like this is the thing. I think with some of it, like as you say, need to be seen. But I think also it's like the major thing is they need to be valued. And I think many people today don't like yeah, they are like they may be seen, they might like feel like they're being invisible, but I think much of it sometimes stems from not being valued in like whatever community they're in and like trying to find that sort of like value self-worth amongst their sort of peers to build these relationships, I think is sometimes a very hard thing to deal with in this sort of day and age, you know.
Yeah, 100%. You nailed it. And I right now think a lot about parenting because you know the thing is that all the troubles that we experience basically in adulthood, it's about what we experience in childhood. So childhood
Mm,
is like so powerful to actually help people to not be so traumatized or not have face so many difficulties later in life. So, and I'm now 32 and my husband and I want to have a baby soon. So I think a lot about it, how, to give people, give my children, to make them good equipped basically. But like, we are here on a school run, and what shocks me is how the moms, because they mostly bring the kids to school, how they talk to their children so disrespectfully. And as you said, you're talking about value. The problem is that when from a young age on, constantly you get so disrespected, like it shocks me how they talk to them, like, come now, come quicker, go faster. This is not right. No, don't do that. Like this commanding way. And I totally understand. I say this with compassion because I understand that many people think that this is good parenting, right? You need to teach your kids order and how to behave. And I understand that. But the problem is that I think they don't hear how, because kids are sensitive, like they're these little beings that just come out in the world. They have no idea what's happening. I mean, they don't know how to behave, right? They're just kind of like small. And I really am such a big advocate to talk more respectfully and just compassionately with kids, and always remember that they don't even have the mental capacity often to understand what's even going on, right? So you can just say, hey, darling, I'm just speaking now. Could you maybe be a bit quiet? Or, like explain things more. And yeah, that's really where it starts. And you can imagine if someone talks to you all your childhood and then you don't have self-worth, I mean, it's a very easy equation. It's not hard to understand why.
No, I hear you, but I have to push back slightly with that because, like, this is the thing in the realm of parenting, and like, look, I have like a daughter, 10 months old, and stuff like this. Great, no problem. I've worked as a camp counselor in the States. Now, when you're a parent when you've got one child. It's like, yeah, you're a parent. When you've got two children, yeah, you're like sometimes a trained hostage negotiator. When it comes to three, you're just a peacekeeping force trying to get through the sort of day. I understand what you're saying, and like, yeah, I do agree to, like, yes, you have to have patience. You've got to talk to them and show them, like, you know what I mean, they are valued, they are respected. But yes, when the little darlings are playing, really playing on that last nerve, yeah, yeah, sleep deprived, and you're just trying to make sure they get from place A to B. Yeah,
Yeah, I
good
feel
parenting can get pushed to the very fringes. Let's just say.
yeah, no, I definitely, and there's of course the whole topic around even, parents being completely overwhelmed, maybe single moms.
Mm,
So yeah, I'm very aware of that. And definitely also, I think it's so important that we, find ways to live more in community and just have support, because yeah, it's really hard when you're like on your breaking limit.
mm,
But still, I think it's just important for the people who have more capacity, because what I see is that, as I said, I think a lot of people would think, oh, this is good parenting, just because of, as I said, of this piece of needing to control kids or teach them the proper way of doing things. And I
mm,
just think that um, if people who have more ability to, who have more time, and to just always make themselves aware that they are little beings, who are just trying, and very often just they don't like, when you look at the developmental age, the brain and the mind only develops when kids are like 3 or something. So very often they really don't understand, like what's even going on. And I think that often parents maybe feel that kids are being super malicious when actually, they're just like playing, or, they're thinking they're super manipulative, when actually, this is just how they are trying to get stuff done. And parents often get triggered, that, their own inner unhealed child actually gets triggered. So yeah, so I think it's super important to always look what's happening within you, and to address your own emotions first, maybe before you start this kind of like war with the kids.
mm.
Mm.
I I think in this day and age, and like, like it's just some observations. I think with regards to like, yeah, people sort of looking within themselves, building on what you're saying. I think a number of people, how can I put it? They're so distracted with a number of like BS things which go on in this world today, from like, yeah, social media, their telephones, to some random TV show. I don't think they actually sort of spend enough time working on themselves, actually discovering who they are and what they can truly be, you know?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Sometimes as a coach, I don't feel so good because I think I live such a weird, unusual life. Like I spend like 80% of my day just like, okay, which beliefs do I have? Then I do some emotional process where I lie and feel my feelings. Then I dance in the garden, bare feet. Like I do all this stuff like all the time. I go to retreats, I go to women's circles, and then I
Mm.
forget, as you said, that many people it's not part of their life, and I honestly don't know how they're doing it, like that they even, that they don't freak out basically. But of course, what I also always want to mention is that that's also the reason why there are so many coping mechanisms in our society, like especially, I mean, in Germany we also have a drinking culture, but here in the UK you can literally see how I think the only reason why English culture is able to survive as it is because most people get shit faced, on the weekends, right? Because I don't know if you've noticed, but here in England, it's definitely a big culture of suppression. Everyone is like so concerned to not be embarrassing, to not be too loud, too much. Like that's always this concern. Everyone's very anxious. And so it's, like that's how they basically do it emotionally. They kind of like exist like this during the week. And then it's like on the Friday night and they just like boom, and everything comes out through drinking. And these cute little girls who never say anything, we are like, wow, and they take their top off and they just
Uh,
go crazy. And so, yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that um, I think if you don't do a little bit of self development, very often you never get out of such patterns, that you are like, oh, I can only socialize if I'm drinking, or I can only be myself or show, my more wild self when I'm drunk or something. And I think it's kind of like, okay, I think to do it a bit in teenage years, but then at some point it's obviously not healthy and just not sustainable. And also it's sad because people never really know you. They always just know this bit like fake social self. And I actually love it when they are a bit more wild when they drink, but I wish they could also do it when they just in their normal life.
yeah, no, but like this is the thing when you go, people like they don't know themselves. I would say with like drinking or not drinking, I would say most people have no clue who they truly are. I would say they like most people in our like this society we live in know around about, if they really kind of know themselves, maybe 50% max, like of who they truly are. Like I've said this before, if someone goes, I know myself 100%, my true self, I'll be a little bit nervous because they've like, yeah, they've done stuff. All I've got to say is they've done stuff in the light and they've done stuff in the dark. And yeah, you don't want to, yeah, you don't want to test that person because they're like, yeah, if they're
I'm the
like,
same. I'm the
oh
same
yeah,
when someone says, "Oh, I had a good childhood," then I'm always like, "Oh, I think you have some big things coming ahead of you." Because
oh, like you go, yeah, you've lived a charmed life, but you know what I mean, like yeah, but the whole thing is, I'd simply say is there are many a person who like 40-50% is, I would say, a good marker for a person if they know that much about themselves.
yeah,
But 10-20% I would say would be typical for most people. And that is generally when things are just normal, not going out like when life goes extreme or any like joyful or anything like this, just normal. That's where they kind of know themselves.
have
They
you
don't selfish themselves.
have you thought about why?
I would say like the whole thing is when like with yourself, like when you go, yeah, I do like these women's retreats, I do like that self discovery. I like look within myself and like, yeah, dancing in your garden, having a good time and stuff like this. But the whole thing is you are out. This is most probably a jump into assumption on my part, but I would say you have become comfortable in becoming uncomfortable in knowing who you are. And most people, if you really went, this is what who you truly are, the, the truth is not always a pretty thing. The truth is not always like clothed in beauty. The truth can be harsh, it can be ugly and painful. And so that's the whole thing why I would say a lot of people don't. It's not a case of they don't want to go through that pain. And that they are some fearful of who they might truly be, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And that's also the problem with these restrictive societies, because when you think about it, how most people kind of like have the same life, you know, and I don't think it is because everybody wants that, but it's because we have created such a society where there's these very narrow expectations of you, and most people fall into this because if they don't, right, in socialization, you get constantly punished if you don't do what is good and right and expected of you. So you get shamed for, yeah, as I said, being too loud, being too aggressive, not wanting to go to school, you know, all that stuff. You get shamed. And so you basically, in psychology, we say you cut yourself off from these desires, from these parts of yourself. So, for example, for me with the dancing, it's just a small example. It took me years to be able to just dance like in a sober way, because as a child I think I was shamed when I was a bit too free, a bit too out there. People were like, oh, you're extra, what you want, you know, like don't be like that. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I repressed that, and then for years I was like, oh no. Even when I saw people just like dancing, having fun, I was like, oh, they are weirdos, you know, but actually it was a desire in me that I wanted to be like this. So yeah, I freed myself. So sometimes when I see a person, you know, kind of like maybe 40 years old, having like a random job that they maybe don't even like, and kind of like just living the same life than their parents live, not out of choice, but just because that's, you know, what they have always done, what was expected of them. I'm like wondering, imagine, you know, what is underneath. Maybe this person wanted to be like a sailor or like an artist or whatever, you know. It's like, that's endlessly fascinating to me. But yeah, I think most people just, yeah, they have maybe been made afraid to actually listen to their inner voice and be how they are actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to ask, when did you start listening to your inner voice? Truly listening to your inner voice? Because you said just now, yeah, you had a bit of restrictions like on you from maybe your environment, like your peers, your like friends and everything like this. But when did you like stop listening to them and listen to your inner voice?
Yeah, it was a mega long process. So for me, like a really big event that happened was when I was 17, because my uncle actually committed suicide. And that was a point in my life which was like such a huge tragedy, because I was very close with him. And it really made me grow up. And I started to do a lot of emotional work, because first of all, I wanted to help myself because I didn't really know what to do, you know. But then also my uncle, he was depressed, and I really wanted to understand what's happening. And so the thing is that when you start to do this emotional work, exactly as you said, you get in touch with parts of yourself that have been in pain for years, that have maybe never been acknowledged, you know, like wounds that you had since many years, but it was too painful to even look there. But then as you do that, you start to uncover also these other parts, and I call them like the weird parts, you know, like, as I said, those parts that want to be naked on the beach or something, you know, like just, or do just things like, yeah, like traveling, for example, was always a big thing for me. Um, so yeah, so that's how it started for me. And a cool thing, I mean, there's always gifts in the pain, you know, because as you said, I loved before you said, become comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like when you do emotional work, you become so freaking comfortable with all this intense feelings in your body that at some point you realize, oh, okay, actually, if my desire is just to dance whenever I want to, and it feels uncomfortable because maybe people are looking strange at me, I know how to feel feelings. So what if I just feel that a little bit uncomfortableness, and then at some point, you know, I just don't care anymore, and then I'll do it anyway. So you realize that there's such a big freedom when you just learn how to feel the uncomfortable sensations, and then suddenly you can really become the person who you want to be. And for example, another good example is, imagine how many people want to be like a rock star, you know, or like a singer or something. Imagine what someone has to be able to feel if they want to go out, like Beyonce, right? She has a concert in front of 1 million people. How intense must the day before the concert be? I mean, she must just feel shivers, and, you know, can you imagine even in your body? I mean, I can't. I think I would get a heart attack or something.
But that's to your perspective, because you never know. Beyonce, like where someone might feel tension, like angst, she might feel excitement, joy, like yeah, passion for what she's about to do.
100%. But if you ever really were present when you feel super immense excitement or joy, it's like you first have to even be able to hold the sensation in your body, you know, because also positive intent like can feel really overwhelming. So
Mm.
I think what I'm trying to say is that like it's really such a gift when you learn how to feel properly, because you actually, because I think many people shy away from really living because they think, oh my gosh, it's going to be too intense, I can't handle it, and then they don't follow their dreams. So
Well, it's a case of I think some people are not. How can I put it? They're scared of taking that risk, taking that jump, because where they are has relative safety. They kind of know where they fit in that sort of world. So yeah, sort of jump into the next thing. Ooh, who knows where it might take him? Most people will think like focus on the loss and like yeah, it's gonna go all wrong, and other people might focus on yes, it might go right, and that's sometimes terrifying in itself. Yeah, could you
yeah,
imagine if it all worked out? Ugh, got no
exactly,
excuses anymore. Ugh. You know?
totally. Yeah, imagine your business is successful and then you have to be accountable to all those people. Scary.
Oh yeah. But like this is the thing you're embarked on. Like you got to remember the reason why you like wanted to embark on this journey in the first place. Like, yeah, brings me to this. But why did you decide to become a relationship coach of all the things you could have been? Like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I, as I shared before, I really struggled in relationships.
Hmm.
And it was not just in romantic relationships, but with my family, especially with my wider family, with friends as well. I always just struggled to communicate, to feel seen, to feel that they really love me. It was really hard for me, but I always wanted it. Like I'm a real connector, you know. As you can see now, I'm like, yeah, I love talking with you. It's really fun for me. Yeah, and yeah, so I basically was like, oh my gosh, I need to figure this out because this is really, you know, it feels really bad, and I want to change that. So yeah, so I really just I became really good at learning how to communicate, learning um, how can you even find people, you know, that fit you. Like, how do you look for someone that actually, where I talk a lot about compatibility. That's one of the most important things, right? If you have a partner that already fits really well, the relationship is so much more easy because you don't fight all the time about like lifestyle choices, you know, or where you want to live, or these very basic things. And for friends, of course, it's absolutely the same. And then I also became an expert in emotional work. So the reason why now I have quite a good relationship with my family is because I did a lot of trauma healing. So I just don't have the same triggers anymore. Like in the past, my dad would say one word and I was like, whoa, I had such an emotional reaction. So it was impossible almost to have a relationship with him. But because I healed so much now, it's like we still don't have like a super deep one, but like a comfortable one, where we can just have a conversation and it's nice and I love him and I see him. And I think the same the other way around. And also another big topic that I learned was men-women relating. So I mostly work with like hetero people. So why is it so complicated often? What do women need to feel really good? What do men need to feel really good in relationships? And so sorry, now I kind of like came off track, but yeah. So why did I want to come
You're
back?
okay. You're okay.
Yes, it's because, and also apart from myself, was because when you look around, I feel that a lot of the problems in the world start actually at home, because as I said, first of all, there's the children involved. If mom and dad constantly fight, it's just very difficult for the kids. And of course, they will have a lot of issues, because of that. So I feel really passionate about teaching couples how just to be more peaceful and loving with each other and have like a harmonious family life. Like, how cool would that be, right? And then also, of course, for people's happiness, because we are a relational species. I mean, people really forget that in the social age as well, but most people will be very, very unhappy just being at home, even, if they text with people or whatever. We need these groups, we need the families in order to have really, really high well-being and good mental health. So yeah, so that's my passion, and I feel a lot of purpose there.
Okay. No, sounds like you did. Like you went. Okay, let me get into this. I need to fix myself on many different levels. Ah, I get that down and repair some bridges and help you move forward. Ah, like because like this is the thing. I think often and yeah, somewhat looking at like from what you've said, like I think often most people they put up their own roadblocks in life because of how, I would say not being emotionally weak. I would say just emotionally disconnected for who they truly are, and like this, which can lead to a tantrum here, a tantrum there, or withdrawal, or some other type of extreme response. Now, would you say, with regards to like, if you, I don't know how your client base goes, if it's like, Gen Z, millennials, or like, Gen X, like myself, or beyond, is there like, if you do have sort of many sort of like different generations like what come to you, which ones would you say is there a specific generation which is more connected or disconnected you found over the course of time?
Yeah, so the older generation generally struggles more to be open with each other.
Hmm.
So, because as you can imagine, our grandparents' generation, I mean, they almost didn't talk with each other about like emotional things. I mean, it was just culturally not a thing, right? It was like the war generation. No, like feelings really didn't matter. And then I think our parents are already a bit better, but still quite just don't open up. I would say that's the biggest thing. I'd say people in our age um, are much better at it, like much better. Um, and also usually have quite good social skills because I think we were just before the smartphones as kids,
Hmm.
which I think really helped us. And then with the younger generation, I feel like some of them are incredibly like developed because they have the internet. So if you want to find ways out, like how to do self development, how to really learn about the psyche and so on. I mean, there's so many resources. But as I said, they struggle a bit because they often have never socialized with kids without the phone. They often struggle just how to sit down and really concentrate. Many have ADHD, so that's
Hmm.
sort of like a bit the issues. But definitely the generations become more and more and more sensitive. that's why I think also there is so much mental health stuff going on. And it's kind of like a blessing and a curse, because I think that it just doesn't work anymore because people are too sensitive, but also at the same time, it can also be very intense, experience if
Yeah.
everything is just in your face. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. I think like observations I've made with like basically, okay, yeah, generations which are coming up now, the youngest of our cohort, like it's one of those things where you can have that they've got all the knowledge in the world at their fingertips and they have delved into it. But they've got all the knowledge, but they have no sort of real experience of it. And in their sort of age, it's harder and harder to sort of get that sort of interpersonal experience
Mm.
on that sort of basis. Because, like, yeah, when I was a kid, I was like, yes, told to go out and play. And yeah, whatever sort of social beef which came out of that sort of interaction amongst my friends, my peers, was resolved one way or the other. Like, yeah, could be like talking about it, like, yeah, could be like get upset, then work it out, and then move forward. I think when it's one thing to be like, I've got loads of friends out there. Where are they? I've got some in China, I've got some in Japan, I've got some in America, and it's like, right. But if you're not actually having that sort of physical one on one, no, because look, as we talk here right now, there is a connection, but that connection would be so much better if we were sitting in the room, like sitting face to face. There is something which is lost. I think that's where a lot of sort of like, yeah, the youngest generations suffer from it. Like millennials, yeah, they've had this sort of like transfer over. Gen X, yeah. And yeah, as we go into the boomer territory, well, they have that sort of connect like experience. They've had the experience, but through each sort of generation sort of taboo
Yeah.
of you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, it's made things harder. So it's a weird time, I would say. Very
Yeah.
weird time.
Definitely. And what I also want to say with the young kids, I think, for example, what you were describing was you learned how to do conflict resolution, right? Because you wanted to play with the kids, so you had to figure out a way how to get along.
Mm.
And often what I see now is that they, for example, do the conflicts online. And of course, it's a very different story, right? Because it's a very different thing if you tell a kid, oh, you're really stupid and, whatever in the face, or if you
Yes.
write it, because there's many less consequences. So I feel like conflicts kind of like get more ugly, but also they don't really have this experience. Also, just to see how someone is hurt when you say something, I think is really important to build the empathy.
Mm.
So yeah, this is really the issue. So if there's parents out there with these young kids, just send them out, like send them to camp or something. They have to learn it. It's so important.
Yeah, no conflict without sort of consequence is yeah,
Hmm.
as you say, call someone stupid online, call someone stupid face to face. That could go quite extreme, nevertheless. Um, so I have to ask now with what you're doing at this present time, with like being a relationship coach and stuff like this, like what would you say, like building, like helping people build those connections? Like, what do some of your clients deem success? Because that is quite a broad thing. Like, what would you say? Like, some of them has deemed as success, making a friend, being in a long term relationship. How, like, what are some of the things they've been looking at as successful?
Yeah. So many people come to me when they have experienced a pattern that is kind of like repeating themselves, For
Mhm.
example, always attracting that one toxic person, or as I said, never finding someone that wants to commit, or feeling super uncomfortable in social situations, feeling that the girls are just not interested in you, like kind of like this one thing that is like their pain point. That's usually why people go to therapy, go to a coach, because it's just too painful. They can't take it anymore. And we really work to resolve that one pattern. And as you can imagine, for example, as I was sharing before, actually the same client that had these issues just to talk with women and listen to them, he literally he had like just a few relationships in his life, and he just felt like women didn't take him seriously. They were not very sexually attracted to him. He found it really hard to flirt, and he was 24, so it was a real big self-esteem problem for him. So it was really beautiful because we worked on sort of like the patterns around his mom, the relationship with her, because that was basically influencing, because she was just like terrible and basically made him feel like he's, like just not a good enough man.
Yes.
And then some very practical skills, what I just said, and some emotional skills, because he was struggling also with anxiety quite a lot. And then this pattern just resolved after like 6 months. He was like, Veronika, I'm just with women, I feel really masculine, I feel like a man. And it was just amazing for him, because he was just feeling suddenly that, there's nothing wrong with him. He didn't have to change how he looks or whatever. It was all inside.
Interesting. With now masculinity. Now, this is the thing. I like when I was born, raised, everything like this. Yes, a man was a man this way, and like stoic, strong, silent. Like if the world's falling apart, you had to be that line to be like to hold it together. Now, today, like it's kind of a very sort of different era, let's just say. Now, what is been the sort of like the vibe you've got for masculinity from your clients? Do they like? Is it clearly defined in their minds? Do they know what's going on, or is it just a mystery to these guys?
Yeah. So I actually work with a lot of guys that struggle. Have you ever heard of the nice guy syndrome?
No, I have not.
Yeah, so it's this new phenomenon, because what you were just describing is this traditional masculinity, what, for example, our grandfathers, most of them just had it. It was very clear, this is a man, this is a woman. It all kind of like got mixed up with the sexual revolution, and with like women, I think, were really hurt by the masculine. And so they just wanted to raise their little boys differently, basically told them, don't be like this, guys, don't be so aggressive, don't be harsh. Often, they even said, oh, masculinity is bad and wrong. And so many men, especially, kind of like these more educated, like kind of like middle class guys that are also sort of a bit more left wing, kind of like, and who also love women deeply, but at the same time, they think there's something wrong with them because they are men and they are potential aggressors, So it's kind of like an internal shame about being men. And so the nice guy syndrome is then when we see that these guys are kind of like real people pleasers. They really struggle to assert themselves, to set boundaries, to take the lead in relationships. That's a really big issue. So that's the guys I work with. And basically the first thing I tell them is there's nothing wrong with you being a man, and women love when you are masculine and strong, you don't have to kind of like make yourself small. And then I tell them things they have to challenge themselves. Every day a cold shower is one of my
A cold shower. Okay. Why do they need to have a cold shower? Veronika, why?
Very important. It's like nothing makes you a stronger person than a cold shower.
Well, okay, for inner strength, I see. Yes, okay.
People always laugh. It's like, this is your tool. It's like, yes, it's the best tool.
It's like,
pay me $500, take a cold shower.
Okay, because cold shower. So, nice guy syndrome. I did not know of this. I've never heard of this before. Like, just because, like, it, And when you say it's more of a liberal thing, I take it like, yeah, if the guys are sort of like conservative, there it's not really an issue for them. No, okay. Like, do like when someone's got this nice guy syndrome, like you made mention of like, yeah, they don't want to hurt and everything like this. Do most of these guys often look at themselves and think themselves weak in regards to like much of life itself?
I mean, I don't think they consciously think it, but they definitely feel like it.
Oh,
So, and that is one of the issues they have. They cannot progress in their careers. They often are kind of like stuck. They feel like people walk all over them. And
mm,
another big issue is actually that they very often have a really bad like sexuality, basically, because as you can imagine, it's a very, as you said, women perceive it as weakness, and then they
mm,
are just not attracted at all. So yeah, so as I said, these guys, they are really in a conundrum because they want to do the right thing. They want to support women. They often call themselves feminists and stuff. Um,
oh, sorry.
yeah, yeah. And I really understand where it comes from. And as I said, it usually starts. They usually had moms, for example, that hated men, or they just heard all the time, men are violent, men are responsible for relationships not working, men are walking out on kids. It's kind of like there's a lot of negative, when you think about it, messages about men, just about. Um, yeah, and so then they struggle later with this, but it can be reversed actually really beautifully quite quickly, because of course most men know, or they feel it, that there's nothing wrong with it, and when they make a few good experiences with women, that they actually love that, when men
Hmm.
are stronger, then very quickly, because it's not natural for a man to be like this at all, they actually have to perform all kinds of repressive mechanisms. And the even bigger problem, apart from the relational problems, is that these guys very often have incredibly destructive patterns, because the masculine energy is very strong. I mean, looking at you, I see it, right? It's like boom, it's powerful. So if you don't exude it, it comes out somewhere. So they very often are crazily addicted to gambling, porn, shopping, um, then very often get depressed, or they just have violent outbursts. I mean, the energy doesn't go anywhere. So that's why I'm super passionate about this topic. And yeah.
Ooh, interesting, interesting. So now, if this is going on with the guys, so yeah, what about the what about the girls? What's going on there? Because yes, like, because that sounds kind of crazy for the guys. Like, is it more sane for the ladies, or am I just being a hopeless optimist right now?
It's not sane at all. So the the counterpart of the ladies is that they are incredibly controlling and domineering. That is like the big shadow in the feminine. And really, I want to say to the listeners that this is a certain part of the population. I totally understand there's also other parts of society where there's very much, this typical, the man is kind of like very dominant, and the woman is kind of like soft and shy and doesn't know how to voice her opinion. That also exists, but
Mm,
that's not what I'm concerned with, because we know a lot about these problems, these classical problems between men and women. But what I'm talking about is kind of like a new development that many people are really unconscious of. That's why I love to share about this. So yeah, so the new phenomenon is the phenomenon of the control obsessed woman. So I used to be one of them, so I know it very well. Yeah, so it's so many women have grown up, as I said, with maybe quite passive fathers, who didn't really give them the kind of safety that they craved for. Actually, little kids want leadership in fathers. It makes them feel safe, obviously. So many fathers were not there or couldn't provide it. And also, moms often, like my mom, was a super controlling woman. She just was kind of like a bit the boss, and that's what she modeled for me, and that's what I just copied. So basically, in the past, how it was with men was that I, told them how to speak, how they should behave in the household, how they should be with their friends and family, even yeah, like how they should style their hair or something, just kind of like this really controlling thing. And then if they wouldn't wanna do what I said, then I would get like angry, really disrespectful towards them. I was also had this unconscious behavior to stay in power, that I was kind of like chipping away at their confidence, by just like women have a lot of power over men, so when you do little remarks all the time, like, oh, that was a stupid thing to say, or you shouldn't wear that. That looks ridiculous. If you say this
Mm.
like all the time as a partner, over time, your man very likely will feel really unconfident, because men value our opinion really strongly, even maybe they don't show us all the time. But yeah, so that's how I was basically. And so what I do with women is actually to help them to rest into their femininity again and become very open-hearted and letting go of control, letting the man a bit take the lead, and just to become to rest into the natural state, which is actually love and yeah, joy, and also letting life flow a bit. That's what the feminine is about. It's not actually really controlling. It's more of a masculine trait actually. So
Right. So, what would you like? Do you have any sort of theories or observations why that's happened to like women over the course of this time? Like you said, you were like a dominant, controlling lady yourself.
hmm.
Veronika,
Yeah,
you there?
it really goes hand in hand
Yes.
with the nice guy syndrome. Sorry, we were
Mm.
yeah, cutting out.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
No.
it really
Carry on.
goes hand in hand with the nice guy syndrome, because if the men are kind of like more passive, don't really say their opinion, don't take the leadership, then the women. Okay, sorry, you were cutting out, and then I just started to speak.
No. No.
So
Like continue.
yeah,
Continue.
one
Yeah.
second. So it goes hand in hand with the nice guy syndrome, because as the men become more passive and weak and sort of like lean back, then the women step into this leadership and start to take control of the situation. So
Oh,
yeah, so it's a bit of a reversal, that women are too masculine and hard, and the men are too soft. So yeah, it goes hand in hand. So for me, it was exactly that situation. So my husband was quite a nice guy, quite soft. Um,
hello. Yes. Uh, I cut out for a moment. I think the internet was playing games.
oh, no worries.
Oh, yes. But we're back.
Oh, no worries. Oh,
Yeah, no
great.
worries. Yes. Like,
Oh, great.
if you could say what you just said again. So,
Yeah,
yes.
no worries.
You know what I mean? It goes hand in
Yeah, no
hand with the
worries.
passive man. Like, yeah,
No problem. Yeah.
go for it.
So,
Yes.
I hear myself again.
I
Is it
hear
possible
myself
to maybe
again.
change
Is
that?
it possible
Or
to maybe change that? Bear with me. Uh, uh, uh. Uh-oh. What's going on? Okay.
da-da-da, da-da-da.
Yep. Can you hear? Is that better? Or is it?
I think it should work.
I think it
Cool. Should work. Cool.
Okay. Cool. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah,
Oh,
so
you son of a
basically what
gun!
happened was a reversal of the feminine and the masculine, that the men became more soft and sort of like shied away from taking leadership, and then the women took this place and started to control the situation. So as you can see, it's a dance. Oh.
Okay. Technical difficulties. Okay. Right.
Oh, but I see you better. But I see you better.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Okay. Fingers crossed. It's like the universe doesn't want you to say what you want about to say, but fingers crossed. Let's hope this works out.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. For